Eagles FM, I'm joined by Elyse Villani, Australian cricketing great whose career spanned international success, domestic dominance and standout leadership. Elyse represented Australia for 10 years, won multiple World Cups and has been a powerhouse of domestic cricket, captaining Tassie Tigers to 3 consecutive WNCL titles and finishing her WBBL career on a high, leading Hobart Hurricanes to their first championship. In today's conversation, we talk about longevity, leadership, and how identity has evolved across different chapters of the game. Elyse, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks very much for having me. It was a nice, kind intro. Thank you.
Not at all. So let's go back to the beginning. How did cricket enter your life?
Yeah, I guess I fell into it, to be honest. I've got 3 older brothers, so I guess at the start didn't really have much choice because I just wanted to do everything that they did, followed them around. We played backyard cricket. We had a basketball hoop in the backyard. We played footy, kick to kick. So yeah, we were a bit of I guess a sporting family. Played a lot of hockey as well. So yeah, we like just absolutely loved it. I do often say I'm not sure how I ended up choosing cricket though, because it was probably the game that I got the least amount of go in against my brothers. Like I never got to bat. I never got to bowl. I was basically just fielding all the time. So like when I actually think about it, I'm not sure how it happened, but yeah, that was sort of the start of my journey, I guess.
So you were just filling a place out in the field that they couldn't cover.
Well, I feel like it was like, oh, let's just basically use me as a witch's hat. And then my brother, who's just 2 years older than me, he always had a really bad temper. So the game would almost end before I got to bat every time because he would crack it when he went out. So yeah, I always seemed to miss out. But maybe that sort of, I guess, added fuel to the fire. Who knows?
And I want to know, was it one bounce, one hand, like those important rules of backyard cricket?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything on the full is out, over the fence is 6 and out, one hand, one bounce, auto keeper, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it was pretty fiery in the backyard, that's for sure.
Excellent. Well, tell me, because you've been in the game a long time, over 18 years. What is it what do you still love about the game?
I guess for me, it's probably something that you never feel like you nail. It's a really difficult game. Tactically, things are thrown at you that are so different. Every situation that you find yourself in, so it's a constant challenge, and I do love that. And there's plenty of lows in the game as well, but the highs that you experience when you're a part of a winning team, or you achieve something that you've been working on, or you play a shot that you'd spent weeks working on in the nets, like they really, I guess, counteract the lows in a way, and you feel this sense, like this incredible sense of achievement along the journey. So yeah, I would say that the constant challenge and always striving to be the best that I can be, and wanting to be a part of winning teams and see other people succeed as well. I think it's just been a constant driver for me.
Where did it come from? Is that something you watched your parents do, strive, or your brothers, or where did that drive come from?
I'm not sure, to be honest. My parents worked incredibly hard. My dad worked incredibly hard with us growing up, supporting 4 kids, and then my mum worked incredibly hard, I guess, taking care of us and taking us to a lot of sport and stuff. So, in some respects, I would say, the hard work that they put into raising us and giving us as many opportunities as they could was definitely inspiring. Dad was always had these little sayings like measure twice, cut once, and all these sort of things. So he's an accountant. So yeah, I would say that they've both got a huge work ethic. But I also feel like I've loved achieving things. I've always loved that sense of achievement when I've worked to something and then I've gotten a result, whether that be studying for a test at school and then seeing that result, or I guess like just the small things along the way, like you've worked on something in the nets or in the field, and then you see it come off, and it's like, oh, that sense of achievement along the way. Like I've always really, I guess, enjoyed that feeling, and feel as though I'm. Yeah, I don't know, like, it's sort of like my brain just keeps going. And I do have to work on that a little bit to stay still, because I am someone who likes to write lists and achieve things during the day and all that sort of stuff. So I do sort of have that, I guess, that mind where I always want to be ticking things off and achieving things along the way, no matter how big or small they are.
Oh, it's a good feeling. I love a list and I love tick that off.
That's it.
It is. I can appreciate that. So some people have a really clear moment, and for others, it's a slower kind of knowing. How did cricket become your thing? And I know you said earlier you're not sure how you fell into that of all the sports, but like, was there a point where you went, "This is it. This is the one I'm going to do. I'm going to stick at."
I think so. I played my two sports that I sort of stuck out a lot were hockey and cricket. And one was a winter sport and one was a summer sport. And um, I guess for me, like, how much time I wanted to spend on my skills in cricket was always a lot more than hockey. So what I loved about hockey was it felt like more of a team game in a sense. But I really wanted to go to the nets and work on my batting, and I'd always get mum or dad or a close family friend in study to take me to the nets and underarm me balls. And so I feel like, once I made my first state team when I was 9, from that it really sparked something in me, to want to spend the time, and how, I guess, like, yeah, the sense of achievement, like I mentioned earlier, in making that team and representing Victoria, and I guess playing with other like-minded people, and wanting to sort of be the best that I could be, and then meeting some heroes along the way, and seeing what they were achieving. And I had posters on my wall growing up, and all the steps that I needed to take to get to the Australian team, and sort of ticking them off along the way. And yeah, I think for me, like, that was sort of how much time I wanted to spend on my skills was kind of what made it really clear that was the sport for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have been called a pioneer in cricket. I mean, you started way back when, before women's cricket was getting any publicity or any airtime. What was that like?
It was interesting. It's quite funny to think of where the game is now, and where it was, when I first started. I certainly wouldn't think of myself as a pioneer, because I feel as though, the way that I've been able to experience this back end of my career, um, I feel like the pioneers have really come before me, when they sort of, their whole career, it was deemed as semi-professional, and there was no money in the game, and they weren't on TV and all that sort of stuff. So, um, yeah, I think, like, when I first started, I was wearing culottes and long socks,
Yeah.
and and the girls in my team now, they don't even know what culottes are. So it's quite remarkable to see just how far it's come. And I guess, I was the only girl playing, in an all boys team. It wasn't even called a mixed team. It was an all boys team at that stage. And I used to be a little bit embarrassed, I guess, that, telling my school friends that I did play cricket. I sort of used to really focus on other sports that, were, I guess, deemed more, like, female friendly
Definitely.
sports.
Yeah.
I didn't want to sort of stand out any more than I already felt like I did, if that makes sense. But then, when I found more females playing cricket, I found a real community where, they're still my best friends today, and I absolutely love the people that I've been able to meet along the way. That's probably, my biggest highlight of my whole career, is the people that I've found along the way. But yeah, I just feel incredibly grateful, because it's something that I never thought was achievable within my career timeline, I guess. So I went to uni full time. I thought that I would be a full time teacher. And just as I was about to become a full time teacher, I decided I'll spend a year. Um, I guess I'll take a year off, and I'll play cricket in England and all that sort of stuff. And then that's when I was picked back into the Aussie team. And then that's when money was starting to be introduced. So the whole landscape shifted really, really quickly. But yeah, it's certainly something I never thought would be achievable within my timeline.
That's pretty cool that you've actually seen that transition, that you've experienced it too. I
Yeah.
know my sister-in-law was very similar, and not about the same age, I think, but she was playing footy. And when she started, it was the same. She was one girl on a boys' team. There was no
Mm.
girls' teams, and she had the same sort of experience. I'm like, wow, it's come so far in, look, relatively short time. It could have happened faster. We've really had to forge the way for women being equal. But yeah, no, it's amazing the career you've seen, which is really incredible. Was there one moment in particular that you can remember that really shaped your career or your feeling of the game?
I don't think there was ever one moment. Like, I think there was probably lots of little moments along the way. Whether that be really difficult conversations with coaches, or, I was in and out of the Aussie team a little bit, so I was being dropped and then having to bounce back from that, having to kind of, I guess, work out in a sense that, in a way, elite sport isn't fair, and being okay with that. And I think that's probably helped shape who I am today in that, um, like it's not, it's kind of funny that, your selection is, I guess, decided by someone external, if that makes sense. It doesn't sort of
Absolutely.
matter how many runs you make or anything like that. At the end of the day, like, your fate is almost decided by someone else. And I think that took me a long time to come to terms with. But then once I sort of understood that, I wanted to play cricket for the little girl inside that just loved playing backyard cricket with her brothers. And it became less about making teams and all that sort of stuff. When I sort of was able to zoom out, um, and not be so focused on individual achievements, because let's face it, when you're an elite athlete, it can be a really small bubble. You can be incredibly selfish, but what I've enjoyed most about cricket is that it is a team sport and you meet incredible people along the way. So the more I focused on that stuff and the stuff that I could control, the more I actually enjoyed cricket, and the more success, I guess, I was able to experience, because I wasn't putting so much pressure on myself and I was enjoying the journey along the way. So I think there was a lot of sort of moments, yeah, along the way that helped me understand, what I wanted to get out of elite sport. And potentially it took me a little bit longer than it could have. But you kind of get to where you are in your own time, if that makes sense. And yeah, I've been fortunate enough to play, cricket at this level for 19 years, and represent states in big bash teams in Australia along the way. So yeah, I think, there was not one defining moment, but there was many along the way.
Yeah. And you mentioned, being dropped and picked back up from the Australian team and things. How did you deal with that? Like, what was your self-talk at that time? Because it could have been really easy to go, oh, that's it, I'm done. And
Absolutely.
so what did you like, how did you manage that?
I think, it was a journey, and it's a funny, individual team sport, cricket is.
Mm,
You can win as a team and perform terribly as an individual and have really conflicting emotions. So I guess for me, like, the good thing is that the resourcing in psychology has improved over the last however many years, and that's something that I've always really valued. In understanding what's controllable, what's not controllable, your emotions and your feelings, and the actions that you can take. And it's really easy to have really negative self-talk and basically call yourself the shittest cricketer going around. But that's not helpful, and logically you can say that's not helpful and I shouldn't be saying that,
yeah.
but emotionally, like, that is how you feel and that is where you're at. So just understanding how to manage that and bring things back to process. And so a really big focus of my career, probably in the back half, was being about process driven, understanding what my process is as an individual, understanding the process as a team, and almost like, finding a way to be okay with failure, because you fail so many more times than you succeed. And it's almost like, how can you shift that narrative from failure being a bad thing to failure becoming a lesson, and allowing you to continue to build and grow from those moments. And for me, understanding what acceptable failure was and what wasn't acceptable from a failure point of view. So the way that I wanted to play, the processes, and if it came down to an execution thing, then so be it. But I became really focused on the processes along the way, and I got enjoyment out of that, and it allowed me to, I guess, become a little less emotional when things didn't go well, because I had I guess, a process to look back on and not just think everything's shit because of a certain outcome. So I think that was probably the biggest shift that I made towards the second half of my career.
And do you feel like you're good with that now? Like, can you see that failure is such an amazing opportunity to grow? Like, do you apply that to other areas of your life as well? Like, is that something you've adopted and, kind of learned from, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's something that takes a lot of practice as well. You can't just
Yeah.
say, I'm going to be okay. Like, you still have
It
feelings
hurts.
attached to it.
Yeah.
And you still have disappointment, and that's completely normal. But it's almost like, how can you lessen that disappointment, or how can you have something positive to focus on, and that's sticking to a process and staying true to yourself. So by understanding, I guess, my individual values along the way as well, means that, in my life decisions, I can stay true to myself, and I can think about what my processes are along the way. And then, I'm not going to get everything right, and I'm going to continue to make mistakes, but at least if I am willing to stay true to myself, and true to the process, then I'm giving myself the best chance of, I guess, being as happy as I can be, and living a fulfilled life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what was it like? Can you describe for us what it felt, looked, sounded like to be standing on that pitch, like before a big moment?
I was always a very nervous person. So I really struggled to eat the morning of games. And when I was thinking about the start of the game, I found it really difficult. I'm thinking of all the way that things can go wrong, and so I guess I'm in my own head a little bit, and I'm quite nervous. There would be many times where I'd be sick before games, and that never changed throughout my career. And almost like once I started, sorry, I'm getting pulled by my puppy here. Um,
Right.
once I actually got on the pitch and started doing something, and then my mind could shift towards like what's actually happening, and get in the contest, then I actually felt like relieved, in a sense that, like, oh my goodness, all the waiting's finished. I can actually get on with it now. So yeah, being in the contest, it's sort of like everything else disappeared, and it gave me some real tangible things to focus on. And I loved that because it sort of took my focus on all the stuff that doesn't matter onto the stuff that did matter, and there was a great sense of relief and excitement to get the battle underway.
That's the end of part one with Elyse Villani. What I'm taking away from this conversation so far is that Elyse, an absolute legend of the game with years and years of experience, still has fears that she has to face, even till the very end of her career. And that when she moved through those fears, onto the pitch, into a game, doing what she loved was what brought her calm. What do you take from this episode? Comment below or DM me. I read every message. And don't forget to tune in for part 2 coming out this week.